still trying to get me some tropical fishes. Cause this shit dope, but we're only get stuck. I guess your birthday, and you got a Nintendo. My fire red, my leaf green, hard as a diamond with a platinum sheen. I'm actually mean and I don't mean average.
What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from mtg on the youtube.com. We like magic so much that we just build decks and stuff all the time. Last time we did Blue-Red Horrors, which we renamed Thing in the Bed. Much better name. And I asked you at the end of that video what you'd like to see more, either Green-Black Delirium or the Orzhov Odric deck. And it was really close. I'm going to give it to Odric this time, especially considering I want to do a budget deck. And I've done a couple since Eldritch Moon came out, but people in the comments have been like, you know, like $65 isn't that budget, so we're going to go super budget. Hello, Igby. On this one, I don't know if you can see him, but he just like climbed my leg. But we're going to go super budget on this one and make it like $25. Well, building with Odric actually presents a bunch of questions, you know? Look at all those stupid abilities that you can get on the combat step. And not just your combat step, your opponent's as well. That's really good. So how do we exploit this card best? Do you just spread out as many abilities as possible and try to get them all on all of your guys, you know? Or do you just pick the best abilities and try to play as many dudes with those abilities as you possibly can? I'm actually going to split that a little bit and prioritize some abilities over other abilities, but overall, try to play a pretty good spread. Obviously, the first thing you do when building a deck around Odric is you put a bunch of creatures in it. That just makes sense, right? We're going to play 29 creatures, and you can actually push it farther than that, I think. But I want at least like 28 in the deck. I think I'm going to push it a little bit harder and play 29, why not? Always go one step farther. So we're going to start with the 1-drop creatures here. 4 copies of Vampire Cutthroat. Well, this is one of the new pieces out of Eldritch Moon right here, and the deck really needed a 1-drop like this. We get to spread 2 abilities from just a 1-drop. That's awesome. That means that if we have an Odric in play, this is not a bad top deck, giving all of our guys lifelink and skulk, which can sometimes be a very important, just, you know, another form of evasion. You know, flying and skulk can be really nice together. So Vampire Cutthroat's not a terrible top deck, and you want that out of your 1-drops. But even on turn 1, he sets you up really well. Another creature I'm really excited about playing is another new thing from Eldritch Moon. I want to play 4 copies of Lone Rider in this deck. Now, it's pretty tough in a lot of situations to flip Lone Rider on turn 3. Doesn't happen all the time, and doesn't happen very often, to be honest with you. You know, there are ways of doing it. Just the fact that he gives our guys 2 abilities just for sitting his butt on the board is worth playing him right there. And once he flips, he gives our guys 3 abilities and becomes a crazy attacker. So, Lone Rider, yes, although it's going to take a little bit more work to flip him than people are saying it will, is all I'm going to say. More 2-drops. I'm going to play 3 copies of Aire, Eternal Pilgrim, in the deck. Weird to see her a little bit, but we're in the right colors. She gives all of our guys Death Touch if we have an Odric during combat steps. I should really start abbreviating that if we have an Odric during combat step bid. It's like IWHAODCS. But Aire's really nice because we've got like 12 things, I think it is, in this deck that have lifelink or have ways of gaining life for us. So this can be really nice if we can get to that 30 life plateau. And during board stalls, you'll often get there. I mean, during combat steps with Odric, abbreviation, all of our guys will have lifelink, and we can gain a ton of life, and we can get to 30 pretty easily in board stalls, which a lot of decks get into in this format, you know? So really isn't that tough, some games. And this is a way of defense and blowing stuff off the board that we don't want there. That's always really nice to be able to do. Not only does she give our whole team Death Touch, but she's got like 2 other applications, so play Aire. Last 2-drop I want to play is 4 whole copies of Hidden Dragon Slayer. This is not as limited in use as people think it is. This takes out a fair amount of things in the format and has lifelink, giving lifelink to our whole team. That's pretty good, you know. It's just a 2-drop when we need it to be, or can take out a bigger guy later on in the game. So, like a lot of things about Hidden Dragon Slayer, and I kind of want to push lifelink in the deck, mostly because we're playing both Aire and Lone Rider. So, lifelink appears more than any other ability in this deck, but there are definitely synergistic reasons for it. Into the 3-drop creatures here. We're playing 2 different 3-drops, and they're both super important and like really cheap to pick up. First, we'll talk about Malakir Familiar right here. This is a great creature in this deck for a few different reasons. Not only does it give, or have the potential to give, all of our guys flying and Death Touch, which is pretty awesome. This thing gets really big, you know. I've played a couple games against Green-White Tokens where I had like an 8/7, you know, flying Death Touch out that during combat steps has lifelink. And remember that, you know, each creature dealing lifelink damage, you know, combat damage, and they have lifelink, is a separate trigger for this guy. So if you're swinging with all your guys and you have an Odric, a lifelink creature, and this, it'll get really, really big, like all in one turn. So not a bad card at all, and has the potential to give our guys a bunch of abilities. Yes. Our other 3-drop is potentially even more important than that, and it's Aven Sunstriker of all things. But Sunstriker is obviously super important. It's the only way we have of bestowing double strike to all of our guys in this deck. You know, we could play Foremost, Arshan Foremost. I think this is much better, obviously. It gives our guys 2 abilities, which is stupid crazy. And flying plus double strike on all your guys is just game ending. Like, this is an amazing top deck later on in the game, so definitely do this. Here's the old boy right here, George Clooney. He looks just like George Clooney to me. But anyway, Odric. We've talked an awful lot about this guy, but I don't want to play all 4 copies. Obviously, he's a legend, so should probably pull it back a little bit. I just don't want to draw a bunch of it. Although he does have a huge target on his back, so like I could see actually playing 4 Odric, but 3 is fine, you know. If not, if we don't even have Odric, then we do have a seemingly disparate team of a bunch of guys, but we're still playing 29 creatures. A bunch of them have evasion, a bunch of them have lifelink, a bunch of them have death touch, so we can like hold out mostly. Or just win the game outright with creature damage. But if at the very least, we can often hold out until we do draw that Odric. And the last creature in the deck, 3 copies, it's a weird one, of Elusive Tormentor, but it's pretty obvious why Tormentor's in the deck, you know? Oftentimes, this is actually a 5-drop. That is how you should probably play this card, honestly. If you have 5 lands in play, you can just play this, and on the same turn, you know, transform it over. But again, I don't really have to prattle on about why this is good. You know, Hexproof and Indestructible are arguably the 2 best abilities we could possibly give to creatures. So I would definitely play this. Even in a non-budget version, I'd slip in a copy of it. It's that important. We're playing 4 enchantments in the deck, and every single one of them is always watching. So it's about $1.75 right now on TCG Player. That's where all my prices come from, as usual. People ask me that all the time. But anyway, $1.75 on TCG Player. But if you didn't want to play this, Hoodman Freeblade would be a perfectly acceptable substitute. But I really want all of our guys to get this buff. It's very important that all of our guys get this buff. You have no idea. And not only that, Vigilance is a very important ability, and that's why I'd like to slip like 1 or 2 copies of Topan into this existing deck list on top of the Always Watchings. Vigilance is very, very good in this deck because it allows us to get all these triggers from Odric on all of our guys, or all these abilities on all of our guys, during both combat steps. You know, we don't have to worry about, oh, do I swing with this guy or not? It just allows us to maximize the effectiveness of Odric if our creatures have Vigilance. We're playing a whole 3 spells, besides enchantments, in the entire deck. And we're going to start with 2 copies of Duress in the deck. Now, we could play a really expensive 1-drop creature in the deck, but lacking the ability to play him because of budget constraints. I'll just play Duress in the main. I would play it in the sideboard no matter what. But in this deck, I'll play it in the main, you know. Really good to have this kind of hand destruction. We can take Collected Companies out of their hand, because we're kind of bad against Collected Company, like every other deck in the format. We can also take out Languish from White-Black Control's hand. That's really important. Another spot removal that would kill Odric, most very notably. And this can also take Planeswalkers out of Green-White Token's hands. So Duress at least goes on the board, but in this deck, I'll put it in the main. It is that important. Make a Stand has been great as just a one-of surprise. This thing can do a lot for you in what would otherwise be disadvantageous combat situations. They'll try to instant speed Collected Company during a combat step, and you can answer that with a Make a Stand, and that can be really, really good sometimes and completely blow them out. 24 lands in this deck right here, and I do recommend that you break the bank and get those Shambling Vents. Yet another thing that gives our guys lifelink, and during combat it can get a bunch of other abilities, so that's pretty cool too. So that brings us up to actually 16 things in the deck that give our guys lifelink. That's not bad at all. Shambling Vents is just really that important. Here's our sideboard right here. Fairly standard white-black sideboard. You know, we got some removal, we got some hand disruption in there, and we got Hallowed Moonlight to tie the room together, so not bad. You know, here's a white-black sideboard in Eldritch Moon Standard. You'll see this a few times. Here are your power rankings right here. Final score of 56. Not terrible for a $25 deck. Could be worse. And it's really fun, especially once you get your team assembled and your Odrics out and you start doing crazy stuff. But you do have to get there. Now, we do have a pretty smooth curve in the deck, and we can play a decent creature every turn leading up to Odric. So we have decent initiative, which is all we really need in this deck, you know. It's really all we can ask for. And we do have some utility creatures like Hidden Dragon Slayer that do other stuff for us. And as soon as we drop an Odric, all of our creatures do stuff for every other one of our creatures, so it's also really good. And we're not super speedy, but we do have a lot of synergy, and we're all about the offense. Although we do have some defense in the form of gaining a bunch of life with our lifelink guys. We can blow stuff away with aire, we can kill stuff with Hidden Dragon Slayer, but defense could be better. Before we close things out, I'm going to talk briefly about a few cards that I think if you had money would be really, really nice in this deck and would jazz it up a lot. I'll lead here with Kithion. This thing is amazing in this deck because I tested out a bunch of these pieces that are, a little bit more costly. And Kithion is just an incredible addition to the deck because he has the ability to give all of your guys indestructible when you go into combat. That is just amazing. He's like the only piece we have in Standard that's really able to do that well. So, really would like Kithion. And we're playing like 29 creatures in this deck, and if we played Kithion, we might move Duress to the sideboard, meaning we'd have even more creatures in the deck. So, we would be able to flip him very easily, and then Gideon could just give one guy indestructible, and that would, by proxy, give all of our team indestructible moving into combat. So I think Kithion is a really, really good choice for this deck. There's also Thalia. She'd be pretty nice, not only because of the obvious first strike, that's not terrible, but also because she's just a great piece in and of herself. Obviously, she hinders our opponent's progress quite a bit and could definitely have a place in this deck. There's also Knight of the White Orchid, another first strike thing that would smooth out our drops, thin our deck a little bit. But especially in the budget deck, I wouldn't play it just because we really need those Caves of Coilos if we want to be able to make that 2 white on turn 2 consistently all the time, So I'm not totally sure about Knight of the White Orchid, but looks like it could be a pretty good inclusion. There's also Gisela. Gisela gives you guys 3 ridiculous abilities and is crazy on her own, so I don't even really have to talk about it that much. Just Gisela. If you have the money, she belongs in here. But the last creature I'll talk about is Avacyn. Avacyn obviously has the potential to give all of our guys indestructible for at least the 1 turn. That's not bad. But it gives our guys 2 abilities, Flying and Vigilance, and I've already talked about how good both of those things are in a deck like this. So Avacyn seems to have a lot of utility, although flipping her could suck. That's entirely possible. So we gotta worry about that. But Avacyn definitely looks like at least a piece that would be worthy of consideration. And with that, that's all I got for now. Let me know how you felt about this one in the comments and like the content. If you like the content, that does me more help than anything ever. And what are we doing next time? That's always an important question. I'm definitely doing Green-Black Delirium next. I wanted to put this deck out first because not only is it budget, it's fun, it's lighthearted, everybody likes Odric and everybody wants to try and make him work. But also, I just wanted like 2 or 3 more days to work on Delirium here. I think it's a good deck. I just think there's too many good choices for the deck and see what works the best. We'll find out. I'm also thinking about doing a skit for Delirium. Those that have been with the channel for a while know that I used to do these skits. I've got an idea brewing for Delirium, so that might take another day too. And with that, I'm off. I'm going to go read through some of this awesome thing that I found. It's an official, original Nintendo Power Final Fantasy I strategy guide from like 1988. And I'm definitely going to go flip through that. I found it while I was like moving stuff around to do this video up here in this room, which I hardly ever do. And it was a series of ups and downs because I wanted to wear my Six Sad World shirt. I don't know if you can see this, but it's got stupid bleach stain on it. Maybe you can see that. And then, like right after I found that out, I found this stupid thing in a box that I had to move around. So that's just really a series of crests and valleys for my emotions before I started this video. But with that, I'm going to go. This thing is so awesome, by the way. It's got like full character profiles and maps, and it's got all the spells that you can buy in each town and all the items that you can find in each treasure chest. Like, this thing is awesome. But anyway, I'm going to flip through this and see how busted up it is. I've had it for like literally 27 years. I think I got it when I was 5. So I will see you guys later. And as usual, I'm Deb from SBMTG. Thanks for watching, my wizards.
And I'm your favorite magic channel's favorite magic channel. Best believe that the professor go bananas for my deck text. I come correct like a porn star, slicing up all these other suckers with my sword mark.